Hello, this is the Unix 3530 final project presentation. We did an Arch Linux installation on a virtual machine. My name is Austin Barton. I'm a junior in the IT program.
My name is Zach Brasier. I'm a senior in the IT program.
My name is Max Cytron. I'm a sophomore in the IT program.
My name is Kalscheur. I'm a senior in the IT program.
And I am Jacob McIntosh. I'm also a senior in the IT program.
So our selected approach, as I mentioned before, was an Arch Linux installation on a virtual machine. The particular OS we selected was a Mac OS system using VMware Fusion. We are installing a 64-bit version of Arch Linux, and included in our submission is the presentation that we're speaking on currently, as well as the technical step-by-step documentation to go about installing the listed features.
All right, so to start us off, you're going to want to install the virtual host of choice. We used VMware Fusion. Once you have your virtual hosting software of choice, you're going to want to get the ISO for Arch Linux. Then once you have both of those ready, the ISO and the virtual host, you're going to want to boot up the virtual machine program and create a new VM and drag that ISO file onto the selection screen. After that, you're going to want to choose your operating system. We selected Other Linux 5.x kernel, 64-bit. Then you're going to want to choose the firmware type, and we selected Legacy BIOS. After saving your VM, then you can change some of the hardware settings of the virtual machine. We navigated to the hard disk and changed the virtual size to 20 gigs. And then we navigated to processor and memory and changed the memory to 2000 megabytes. And after your hardware specs are set to the way you want, then you can launch the virtual machine.
Next, we're going to start configuring Arch Linux. And to do this, we're going to partition the disk. To start to partition the disk, you're going to run the command cfdisk-dev-sta. Next, you're going to select GPT, and we're going to create 3 separate partitions, one for the bootloader, one for swap space, and one for standard Linux. To start, create partition for bootloader. Click enter for a new partition, enter 1M and navigate to type with the arrow keys and select BIOS boot. Click enter, navigate to free space with the arrow keys and create an additional partition for swap base. Click enter to start a new partition, enter 4G, navigate to type with the arrow keys and select Linux swap. Click enter, and then create an additional partition for the standard Linux. Click enter for new partition, enter 16G, and select Linux file system, and click enter.
Okay, so after that, there's going to be an option to, let's say, either write or dump will appear. You're going to want to click write to make sure you actually write into the partition table, and then it's going to ask you in the image down below. It'll say, "Are you sure you want to partition the table to the disk?" You can click yes, and then you will exit the partition tool. On the top part of this image, that's where it says quit. That's exiting the partition tool. And then you can do a quick list block command and make sure the partitions are there and you can see them. Once you've done that, you need to format the disk that we just made. So to do the standard disk, you will do you'll do the command mkfs.ext4/dev/sta3. For the swap disk, you will do the mkswap/dev/sta2, and then for the swap partition, you will do swap on-a. And then now that you have the drives, you need to mount them. So you will change into the mount directory with cd/mnt, and then you will mount the drives with the mount/dev/sta3/mount.
Next, what you're going to want to do is you want to download the system files. Start by copying the system files with the command pacstrap/mount base Linux firmware nano grub dhcpd cpcd. And then you want to edit the configuration of the file systems with the command genfstab/mount. Then you're going to output the file with the command genfstab/mount and then to the mount etc fs tab. FS tab is what the bootloader uses to know which files to load at boot time. And then next up, you're going to want to make the mount directory the root directory with the command arch chroot/mount, and then create a password for the root directory as desired. Next, you're going to want to install grub with the command grub-install/dev/sda, and configure grub with the command grub-make config-o/boot/grub/grub.cfg. And then you're going to want to exit out of, then you want to exit, and then you're going to reboot the system using the reboot command. And then we're going to want to start DHCP services with the command systemctl start DHCPD. And then lastly, we're going to want to modify the pacman configuration with the command nano/etc/pacman.config.
Yeah, so we modify the pacman config to include the 32-bit packages in a 64-bit machine. As Max mentioned before, we're going to do nano etc pacman.config. We're going to comment out the multi-lib or multi-library, as well as include etc pacman-d mirror list. Once that has been modified and saved, we can click yes, and it'll allow us to write and output those changes. Not necessarily required for the installation, but considering some of the packages within Linux are 32-bit based, it can help with some of the compatibility. Saving that pacman configuration is going to be pacman --syy. That's just going to synchronize all of the repositories as well as the configuration that has been loaded. So at this point in time, we do have a configured and installed version of Arch Linux. For this particular project, we went ahead and installed GNOME, which is a graphical user interface that a user can use to more easily interact with some of the Linux tools available. The first part of this is installing xorg. So we're going to do pacman --s --needed xorg. We just went ahead and installed all of the default packages that are associated with this. It does take a little bit of time to finish to completion. Afterwards, you can go ahead and sync pacman once again, and then install GNOME itself, which is pacman -s -needed GNOME. Again, takes a little bit to install. But once both of these components are loaded, we can move on to the last required package, which is Arch Linux-wallpaper. That is with pacman -s -needed Arch Linux wallpaper. The xorg is essentially just a graphical server that GNOME can hook into to kind of display its graphical representations. GNOME, as I mentioned before, is just the standard GUI interface processing package behind it. And then Arch Linux wallpaper is another package that is utilized within that assembly as well. After these are installed, you're going to go ahead and reboot the machine to make all of these installation packages take effect. Before you actually start the GDM service upon reboot, you're going to want to go ahead and enable it. Enabling this service, much like the DHCP services, allows it to automatically start upon reboot. So you do systemctl enable gdm.service. Afterwards, you can start this service with the same command. It's just start instead of enable. And if you go to the next slide, we see the working version of our Unix system that allows us to log in with the previously set username and password for that particular user. With that being said, that's all we had, and thank you very much.